Hello, my name's Conal O'Boyle. I'm 16 and I'm from Muff, and just thanks to Joe for giving me this platform today. Andy Warhol once said that they always say time changes things, but you actually have to go out and change them yourself. Which is why on the 28th of March this year, when I spoke to the All-of-Government panel on climate change, I made it very clear that we want change and that we want progressive infrastructure in this country. I was actually quite frustrated listening to that speech back because I used the word want instead of the word need, and maybe I didn't highlight the urgency of the crisis that we face. We do want windmills, but we need windmills. We need solar panels, and we need Ireland to have net zero emissions by 2050. And my question is, why can't this be done? Climate change is far more important than the National Broadband Plan, and it's far more important than Brexit as well. Time is not going to heal this problem. We have a small window of time to change things, and there is no other option. And the worst thing about this situation is that it's completely man-made. It stems to what Einstein said. The world as we have created it is a process of our thinking, and that is our problem. I can only tell you today about my story as a young student climate activist. My interest in this subject initially stemmed from a lot of anxiety. I was told when I was a young boy in the Red Cross that children who were aged 3 years old at the time would be the last generation who could deal with the climate crisis. My wee brother was that age at that time, and that message didn't leave me at the door of the Red Cross Centre, which used to be a customs post on the border of Muff and Derry. It followed me the whole way through the last 6 years. I always wanted to become a politician. It's in my family. My dad was the head of Labour Youth in the 90s, so say I defected. I'm lucky to have grown up in a house where the news was on every night at 6 o'clock, no exceptions. Major news stories throughout the years have stayed with me, even from a young age. Everything from the economic crash to Obama's first inauguration, the Syrian war, Osama bin Laden, Ebola, horsemeat. Watching all these news stories kept me informed from a young age, and it motivated me to want to make a difference. So coming back to climate change and the anxiety around it, something that in the midst of all these other news stories wasn't quite going away. I thought the Paris Agreement was a turning point, as did most people. Unfortunately, time has shown that it has not turned out to be that way, given the astronomical fines our country has to pay for not reaching our 2020 targets. As a 12-year-old boy back in October 2015, I was feeling quite hopeful. Aged 13 and 14, I was hopeful. I was watching the news every night at 6 o'clock, and in hindsight, the lack of news coverage on the topic was probably the reason I was so hopeful. Then when I was 15 last October, that devastating IPCC report, which pretty much told us that this is the final curtain call if we want to secure our future. Mary Robinson had just released her latest book before Christmas last year. Climate Justice was its name, and it was on the top of my Christmas reading list. I told my parents every day that it was the book I wanted for Christmas, and it was for that reason I was unsurprised when I finally got it. It's only a tenner, you should pick it up. I didn't know exactly what the book would be about, but that's why I wanted it as much as I did. The book tells the stories of people who are already suffering the effects of climate change. And one story in particular stood out to me, and it really hit home the message that not enough is being done, and it's the story of Kiribati. On January the 1st, 2000, Kiribati became the first country in the world to welcome in the new millennium. However, the way things are going, on January the 1st, 2100, no country will exist. This is due to rising sea levels caused by the man-made melting of the polar ice caps. The ground is being eaten up by the sea, and soon the islanders will have to retreat to Fiji, thousands of miles away from their native land. This is a sign that we are literally pulling the carpet from under these people's feet. What I learned was that the people who deserve it the least are the ones who are getting it the most. They lost the lottery of life. We were the winners. We were born into a safe country where I don't have to worry about war or violence, unlike my parents. With winners come losers, and the people of Kiribati lost that lottery. And due to the lack of adequate government action, their lives are at stake as we speak today. The world as we have created it is a process of our thinking. It cannot be changed without changing our thinking. Those words of Albert Einstein are very relevant and very true. The process of thinking that has led us to where we are today has proven to be a short-sighted thought process. We live in a capitalist country, one that is being run with invested interests in mind. Our governments serve the few, not the many. which is already having an effect on the lives of the people of Kiribati and other places. An Irish Times headline: Government delays plans for smoky coal ban following legal threats from the industry. That's a quote. Our government are being told what to do by the coal industry. They have postponed a smoky coal ban, which will serve the many, in order to satisfy and serve the few. And if that doesn't scream capitalism, then what does? It's obvious that this needs to change. We need to be a country that serves the many. We need to make a move away from this system. And as a country, we cannot afford to be bullied by corporations at any time, let alone this time. The government needs to take responsibility for our actions and our problems, both domestically and on the international stage, instead of kicking them off down the road, which has essentially gotten us to this point. The Fine Gael party line of every individual has a role to play in climate change. To a certain extent, that's a lie. Of course, we have a civic responsibility to recycle and ensure that our towns and villages are litter-free and clean. But Mary and Dingle or John and Castlebar cannot pull the plug on oil exploration off the west coast. They cannot introduce a smoky coal ban or implement policy that will curb our emissions. That's the job of legislators. Fine Gael. Yep. Fine Gael are trying to pass the buck onto the everyday citizen of the country when ultimately the buck stops with them. The government hide the fact that they still grant oil licences by telling us that the only way to curb our emissions is to buy an electric car. I had a conversation with the Minister in Leinster House on the 27th of March this year. He pointed to me and said that it was our responsibility to get our parents to buy electric cars and retrofit our homes. But my question is, what difference is that going to make? What difference is one person going to make? The point I'm making is this: it's grand if people go to recycling plants and deal with their waste responsibly. But the real change has to be top-down and by legislative change. And Fine Gael are reluctant to doing that. We need leadership, not cowardice. I can't let this opportunity go by without mentioning the all-of-government climate action plan. Although it's good enough to see the government caring enough about climate change to produce a document about how they're going to deal with it, there's no real system or policy change within the plan to truly tackle climate change. There's no commitment within the plan to have net zero emissions by 2050, which means that there's no guarantee that that's going to happen. What annoys me the most about the plan is its stance on corporate involvement. The private sector as it's known. That shouldn't have any involvement in the process of decarbonisation of this state. Everything the government needs to tackle this crisis should be owned by the state. Every bit of infrastructure, every worker who is employed to retrofit should all be funded and controlled by the state. It's why you pay tax. People pay tax for better state services. People don't pay tax to have critical infrastructure owned by some private organisation that could pull the plug on any project at any time. And this is another example that the taxpayer should be in the full knowledge that their money is going back into state resources and is being invested with their interests in mind. And I'd just like to finish by saying this. I'm 16 and I care about the living world. I don't know why I have to stand up for my future at this age, because apart from Jesse here, none of these men sitting beside me ever had to do that. I can campaign and lobby and scream and shout all I want, but at the end of the day, the ball's not in my court. I cannot vote, so all I can do is make my voice heard. It's not fun, it's not cool, but it's necessary. There are more people in this room who can vote than people who cannot, and I hope that you take away from my presentation today that there are children all over the world who will never be able to do anything about the climate crisis. After all, it's kids who are 9 years old today who will be the last to be able to make a difference. The latest local and European elections have shown a green wave has hit our shores, and it is crucial that now, more than ever, that wave continues. Gurmaagov.